Want to know which 2025 rookies are going to be elite and break out for your fantasy teams? I've done hours of research and deep dives for every single rookie that I'll be mentioning, and each will build a case as to how they're going to help you propel your 2025 fantasy football season. The first one is going to be Ashton Jeanty out of the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, we know that he was drafted in the first round, 6th overall by the Raiders, and the historical data for running backs drafted at this high of a capital go in favor for Jeanty. And I'm going to read a few things over here first. So the first one is that he is going to have a 63% chance to finish as a top 24 PPR running back. And he also has a 45% chance, based on historical data of running backs drafted in the first round, to finish as a top 12 PPR running back as well. And what's really impressive is that in the past 5 seasons, running backs that have been drafted in the first round have averaged a total of 17.4 PPR points per game. Now, the thing when you look at the upcoming team dynamic for Jeanty is that there's no threat there. I mean, I know you have Zamir White, someone that I thought was going to do well for the Raiders last year, and it didn't pan out, but he's not really committed long-term to this team. And basically, the odds of him having a strong finish are extremely high. I think that he has the opportunity to be a top 5 overall running back. And when you add factors like Geno Smith now under center, plus you have Brock Bowers, and then you have Chip Kelly now as the OC to go along with Pete Carroll as the head coach, I believe that not only will you see him running effectively as a running back, but you also may see an offense that will cater to the ability that he has in receiving the ball. Another running back that I believe will be fantastic for you, and it goes based off where he's going to be drafted and who he has as well as a head coach, is going to be Omarion Hampton out of the Los Angeles Chargers. And the historical data matches very similar to that of Jeanty, but because of where he was drafted later on in the first round, he has a 38% chance of finishing as a top 24 PPR running back. He also has a 22% chance finishing as a top 12 running back in that exact same category. And the historical comps show very similar to that of Jonathan Taylor as well as Miles Sanders when they first came into the league. And what helps, I think, above anything else, is the coaching system that Hampton finds himself in. And this is why he, for me, is the number 2 overall player in this rookie class. And that's even with Superflex. So even if you need Cam Ward, and if you're a little bit shallow, of course, it's easier to put a quarterback over. But if you have a pretty good situation there at the quarterback position, I would much rather go for Hampton, and it's because of where he's at right now. Just to break things down as to how good he has his coaching system, Greg Roman, as offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens from 2019 till 2022, the Ravens led the NFL in rushing yards, averaging 206 yards per game, and maintained a top rushing offense throughout Greg Roman's tenure. So in 2019, we saw that 206 average. And what helps also is the strength of the offensive line for the Chargers. Last year, they actually ranked 9th in run block efficiency. And this also was an offense that ranked 12th in red zone scoring. And in 2024, in the regular season, they actually ranked 17th in rushing offense, and they also averaged over 110 yards per game. And we saw how well J.K. Dobbins, an older veteran, as well as Gus Edwards, was able to do. Granted, they weren't blowing the lid off into anyone statistically. However, you have Omarion Hampton, who is an elite prospect. I mean, he's a tier beneath Jeanty, but he now goes into a great scenario where we know Jim Harbaugh is going to run the ball. Plus, you add Greg Roman's effective play calling there as an OC. I believe that's going to bode well for Hampton, who has a strong opportunity of being a top 5 running back also in fantasy, considering that he is once again in a tier beneath Jeanty, in my opinion. Now, the first receiver I'm going to make mention is going to be probably the most intriguing receiver of all. That's going to be Travis Hunter from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is getting top 5 draft capital. He was the 2nd overall player drafted in the NFL's draft this past year. The historical hit rates just go in favor for Travis Hunter. For example, he has a 57% chance of being a top 36 wide receiver in fantasy. He also has a 33% chance of being a top 24 wide receiver as well. And when you just focus, we know how well he can be as a corner, but I want to focus specifically on how well he did in college with certain wide receiver statistics. And I want to specifically go over success rates on certain coverages. So for example, he had a 92% success rate versus man coverage. He had a 90% success rate versus zone, and he also had an 88% success rate versus press coverage. Now, what makes him intriguing as well is that his route tree is really strong. He excelled in slants, dig routes, as well as go routes. And when you look at how well Travis Hunter is as a pure athlete, I mean, it's just elite. You'll see that he will be able to easily create separation, and that will go well considering that he is quick with his cuts and has great acceleration. And when you look at these numbers here as far as how well he did on the combine, it just gives you the confidence in the world that Jacksonville not only moved up to obviously acquire Travis Hunter because of his elite skill set as a wide receiver, as a corner, but I believe that they did it to make sure that they could combine Brian Thomas Jr. with a great talent as a wide receiver too with Travis Hunter. Now that Christian Kirk is no longer there with Jacksonville, there's no other wide receiver outside of Brian Thomas Jr. that gets you a little bit nervous about taking touches away from Travis Hunter. And I believe that he has the potential of being a solid wide receiver too, because it's going to be really interesting to see how Jacksonville is going to game plan with Travis Hunter, because he has such a unique skill set, and there's going to always be talks about whether or not he's going to be utilized on defense as well. But I believe that you don't do that trade unless you know you're going to utilize this guy primarily on offense, considering that he is an elite prospect overall and someone that I believe will flourish as a wide receiver in the NFL. Now, the next player I want to go over is going to be Ted McMillan, and he's with the Carolina Panthers. And he has a 50% chance to end as a top 36 wide receiver in PPR, while having a 28% chance of finishing as a top 24 wide receiver. And this draws similar comparisons to that of Michael Pittman Jr. as well as T. Higgins. And you can see here the stats that both of these guys put up as rookies and how well they're able to make an impact in fantasy football. Now, when we actually transition really quick, I want to go over some of the success rates that we also saw from Travis Hunter now being applied to Ted McMillan. And his success rate versus zone was solid at 88%. His success rate versus man coverage was solid at 85%. And he also had a strong success rate versus press coverage at 83%. Now, where his strengths lie, they're a little bit different compared to Travis Hunter. Where he flourished in his route tree was going to be on curls, comebacks, and also in fades, which makes sense considering that he has this big stature. And when you also consider what he's able to do athletically, that also creates a great combination for him to be successful. And when you look at the team dynamic there for Carolina, I mean, you had Adam Thielen, who did really well last year. I mean, he was obviously a little bit banged up there towards the end, but he's an aging receiver with an expiring contract. So there's no competition there for McMillan. And I believe that this makes him a high ceiling, maybe wide receiver 2, potential 1, depending on how Bryce Young also develops as a quarterback. But at the very least, I think he becomes a wide receiver 3, strong flex play. And then, of course, we expect that he will continue to grow in his production the more he gets familiar and the more that we hope that Bryce Young has developed as well. The next player I want to go over is going to be Quinshon Judkins, running back for the Cleveland Browns. His college career, he was fantastic as a running back. He had over 3,700 rushing yards with 45 touchdowns and a very impressive 5.1 yards per carry. Now, he was drafted in the second round, so he has a 35% chance of ending as a top 24 running back, while also having a 20% chance of ending as a top 12 running back in fantasy next year. Now, for me, what also gets me encouraged about Judkins as an overall prospect is going to be the offense there in Cleveland. Now, with Stefanski, we know that he has a strong emphasis of running the ball. Since Stefanski has come in as a head coach there for the Browns have averaged 139.6 rushing yards per game, ranking 3rd in the NFL during that span. And for me, once again, very similar to some of these guys that have no competition. The only one that you really there's no one there really, because now Nick Chubb's not there. Plus, you also have Jerome Ford. With the minimal competition there in Cleveland, I think he easily becomes a solid running back 3, maybe a solid running back 2, depending on how well he's able to grasp this offense and how well Cleveland's able to do in general. Considering that we've always had our reservations with Cleveland, considering that they haven't really had an established quarterback there in a while. Now, the other guy I want to go over is going to be his teammate, Travion Henderson out of the New England Patriots. Now, similar to that, the hit rates are very similar because of where he was drafted in the second round. So I want to actually more so focus on how well he did in college and also the coaching staff that he's going to be under in New England. He had 590 carries with 3,761 yards in his college career, averaging 6.4 yards per carry, and had 42 touchdowns. And what makes him an elite prospect is how well he is as a receiving running back as well. He had 77 receptions to go along with 853 yards, averaging 11.1 yards per reception to go along with 6 touchdowns. And his senior year, he averaged 7.1 yards per carry, just speaking to the big playability that he has as a running back. And when you look at the coaching staff there in New England, now that you have Coach Vrabel there, Coach Vrabel, granted, I'll give you this, he had Derrick Henry, but we still got to look at the stats here. Mike Vrabel's offensive schemes were built around a potent rushing attack. When you're assessing the offense that Mike Vrabel typically runs, it is a rushing attack that typically has wide zone concepts, a West Coast system for the most part. This approach led the Titans in having the highest early down rush frequency at a rate of 45.3% during the 6-year tenure that Mike Vrabel was there with the Titans. And I know that you have Ramondre Stevenson there, but I just believe that with Henderson, he is someone that can even potentially jump into the slot because of how effective he is as a receiving running back. And I think that he becomes a solid PPR flex option, and he could have a strong RB2 finish considering, of course, how well Stevenson is involved and the productivity of this offense in general. So it's going to be really, really cool to see how well they're able to get Stephon Diggs acclimated. Plus you add Travion Henderson and this overall new look Patriots offense with Mike Vrabel now as the head coach. Hey, before we go further, we have 3 more players to go over, but if you're getting value, do me a solid. Hit the like button as well as the subscribe button. Let's go over these last 3 players. This next one is going to be Colston Loveland out of the Chicago Bears. Now, I know that we've been talking about historical data as far as hit rates for players in certain positions and where they're drafted and the position. The tight end position is a little bit more unique. Now, despite him being drafted in the first round, Loveland actually has a 25% chance of ending as a top 12 tight end in his rookie season. And the comps there you're seeing is going to be Pat Freiermuth as well as Hunter Henry, 2 names that don't really wow you. But for the most part, it's because tight ends develop a little slower. What I think makes Loveland stand out is the offense is going with Ben Johnson now as the head coach for the Bears. And plus you think of the weapons that they have there with DJ Moore, Omadunze. Now you add Loveland in the mix, and you're also hoping for a step forward for Caleb Williams this upcoming year in his sophomore season. But I want to more so delve into the historical data that we have seen tight ends flourish in Ben Johnson's offenses. And Sam Laporta, actually, I should say, last year, he had a 23.1% target share in the red zone that led all tight ends with 33.3% of this team's end zone targets. Now, when you check out this stat over here as well, this is really interesting. Sam Laporta was targeted 19 times in the red zone. He secured 12 of those receptions. He also converted 5 of those receptions into touchdowns, resulting in a 26.3% touchdown rate on red zone targets. And he also accounted for 20% of the Lions' red zone targets, making him tops in the NFL among tight ends in this category. And I mean, the veteran competition here, I mean, you still got Cole Kmet on the roster. I mean, there could be 2 tight end sets there, but I just predict that with Loveland getting this kind of draft capital, you have to imagine Ben Johnson saw something that he liked, which would make me believe that he is going to have a early involvement that will make him really valuable in fantasy. And in redrafts, makes him a potential fringe tight end 1. Could be even top 5 depending on how well this offense progresses with Ben Johnson there as the head coach. This next player we're going to go over is going to be Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He also was drafted in the first round, And his hit rates have him having a 30% chance of being a top 36 wide receiver in PPR formats, as well as a 15% chance of ending as a top 24 wideout in fantasy football. Now I want to go over also his success rates. He had a 89 success rate versus man coverage. He had a 91% success rate versus zone coverage, while also having a 86% success rate versus press coverage. Now his route tree is very similar to that of Ted McMillan, where he is strong on curls, comebacks, as well as fades. But the one thing that stood out really for him, for me as a prospect, is how crisp his route running is. And I think that's going to be very valuable in this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, because you have Mike Evans there, who's going to draw lots of attention from DBs. Chris Godwin, despite the injury, still was someone that was productive before that. So you're seeing Igbuka potentially being a wide receiver 3, depending on how well Jalen McMillan is. But I see Igbuka taking over that role, maybe even filling in as a wide receiver 2, with Godwin slowly getting himself back into the mix after his injury. But the Buccaneers offense should flourish because Baker Mayfield's been someone that has been able to balance the target share, get multiple players involved. And this is all done despite Mike Evans leading the way with 110 targets. And before his season-ending injury, Chris Godwin was at a pretty good pace. Through 7 games, he had 50 receptions, 576 yards, 5 touchdowns on 62 targets. And McMillan, in his rookie season, had 8 touchdowns. So I believe that Igbuka could flourish getting the same looks and can be successful in fantasy with this offense. Now, I said I had 3 left, but I actually have 2 more. And one of my favorite ones in the entire draft is going to be the next one. It's going to be Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of the Green Bay Packers. Now, I did a whole video about this guy and how I believe that he could potentially be the next Puka Nacua. Not so much in the draft capital of where he actually went in the NFL draft, but as far as his combine numbers, his production in college, I just think he has the overall skill set to really have a breakout year. Very similar to that of Puka. Of course, Puka, I think, was under the radar a lot more considering he was a 5th-round draft pick. But what I like seeing here, and I'm not going to dive into the hit rates because they're very similar to that of Igbuka, but I want to go over his deep ball efficiency, and I also want to go over his athleticism. So I went over this in deeper depth in the other video that I'm just referenced, but he ran a 4.29 40-yard dash, the highest among this class. He had a 10-yard split that was 1.49. In Texas, his senior year, averaged 17 yards per catch and had 9 touchdowns as well. And with Christian Watson and the inconsistent play of Jalen Reed and Romeo Doubs, I mean, I think Matthew Golden has the ability to really take over this wide receiver room. And that could be just because of him being available. I think Christian Watson, unfortunately, is someone that we've seen have these boom weeks, but is so consistent with the injuries. And I believe that with Jordan Love being this gunslinger and Matt LaFleur being a more than capable offensive-minded head coach, and I think that Matthew Golden, with the skill set that he has to go along with the athleticism, I think will flourish in this offense. And I believe that if he's given the opportunities like what we saw Puka Nacua get with the Rams his first year, I think Golden will be someone that will just smash the ADP that he has because of the value that he is going to provide for this offense. Now, the last guy I'm going to go over is going to be Caleb Johnson, running back out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what for me makes him really a guy that I'm targeting is because now that you have Najee out, Najee went to the Chargers, you have now Caleb Johnson taking over that role. And Caleb Johnson, the numbers as far as where he was drafted as a 3rd-round running back kind of decreased as far as his opportunities of being a top 24 PPR option. He now has an 18% chance of being a top 24 PPR running back, and that is a lot less compared to what we saw with Travion Henderson, who was in the 2nd round. But Caleb Johnson shouldn't cost you too much because he should be going early 2nd, I'd say 205, 203 in rookie drafts. And if he's there, I think he's a great value. And I think that with Arthur Smith having such a proven track record as a running backs whisperer, or just having effective rushing attacks that make the running backs really valuable in fantasy, I think that Caleb Johnson is slated for a fantastic role. And you have Jalen Warren there through 2025. And I think that a lot of what you'll see Caleb Johnson really maximize in is going to be his ability to be a touchdown vulture with his goal line presence. And I think that he'll be a great replacement for Najee Harris, and someone, like I said, that you should be targeting potentially early second round pick in your rookie drafts. But nonetheless, someone that I think will be valuable even in redraft leagues as a stash until we, of course, see how well this offense is able to progress. And as they continue to figure things out in the offseason, who will be under center. Despite all the confusion, I think that Caleb Johnson is going to be a solid prospect and one that you should consider targeting in your upcoming rookie drafts. All right, everybody, that is my top 10 players. I hope you got value in it, and I need you to do me a solid. If you found value in it, let me know below who is someone that you're looking within this list to add to your fantasy teams, and also let me know of anyone that I may have missed. But if you got value, do me one final favor: hit the like button as well as the subscribe button, and I'll be sure to continue dropping videos once a week throughout the offseason as we gear up for the 2025 season. In the meantime, take care. God bless. Peace.